Project 613, Day 1. Let me just give a brief introduction to what this project is all about and what we are aiming to achieve over the next year. When God gave the Torah to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, Moses was the prophet, and through Moses, everything was communicated to the Jewish people. For 40 years, Moses led the people through the desert until they came to the land of Israel, and throughout those 40 years, he taught them the Torah. The Torah contains two parts. There are the 5 books of Moses, the written record that was dictated from God to Moses. Right before Moses died, he gave the Jewish people a gift, a complete Torah scroll. This Torah scroll contains a historical narrative from creation till 2,488 years later, when the Jewish people were about to enter the land of Israel. In addition to that, there are all the mitzvot, all of the commandments from God to the Jewish people on how to live Jewishly. The thing is, though, the way they are written in the 5 books of Moses are mostly very cryptic. It's very difficult to know how exactly to keep the mitzvot. So in addition to the written record, God communicated to Moses an oral record, a tradition. Every mitzvah that was recorded in the written Torah also has a tradition that accompanies it as well. Moses taught it to the Jewish people, and they taught it to their children, and from generation to generation, for the next 1,500 years, this tradition of Torah, which explains how to do all the mitzvot, how to understand the written record of the Torah, was communicated orally. Rabbi Judah the Prince lived a few hundred years after the destruction of the Second Temple and the beginning of the Roman exile, and he determined that in order to preserve the tradition, he was going to write a book called the Mishnah. Following him came the Talmudic sages who wrote the Talmud, and this became the official body of Jewish tradition. However, even after the Talmud was redacted, it was very difficult for the common man and even for many scholars to understand exactly how to keep tradition from the Talmud. 850 some odd years ago, Maimonides, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the Rambam, authored a work which had 14 books. It's called Mishnah Torah, and in it he records all the laws that you need to know in order to behave Jewishly. As an introduction to that work, Mishnah Torah, he composed a book called Sefer HaMitzvot, where he counts out and briefly explains all 613 mitzvot. In 1984, the Rebbe started a campaign to learn the entire Mishnah Torah by learning 3 chapters each day. But as another part of that campaign, he took Sefer HaMitzvot, the book of mitzvot, and divided it up based on the study track of 3 chapters. And with this, if you follow the Sefer HaMitzvot according to this system, within a year, you will be familiar with all 613 mitzvot. So join me on this journey. You'll be glad you did.